And welcome once again to today's event. My name is Mike, and I am with ClearAdmit. ClearAdmit is an applicant community for all of those interested in business schools at the master's level. So if you're interested in an MBA, a master's in management, or kind of anything in between, you should be on our site learning how to get into those programs, getting lots of tips and tricks and advice about the process. And we work very closely with many of the top business schools around the globe. One of those schools being the fantastic business school, Kelley School of Business at Indiana University, which, by the way, University, the most recent national champion in football, or I should say American football for our folks across the globe. So, congratulations to everyone on the panel for that school accomplishment, first time ever, which is awesome. And although we are not a sports focused conversation right now, it's still pretty cool news and cool stuff to get Indiana on the map. But today's session, we will focus more on generally what can an MBA do for you, and not only in this day and age, but kind of always, right? What is the purpose of this degree program? What can it do for somebody for their career, and even just personally, right? There's a lot of things that an MBA can do for you personally and professionally, and open up many different doors. And we want to make sure that we can ask our lovely panel about all those different topics as we move forward. So with that, I will first introduce our panelists, and we can start that off with Josh. Josh, how are you today?
Wonderful. And by the way, Mike, I take full credit for the championship.
You
Hi,
taught
everyone.
Coach Seg everything he knows, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's really nice to be here and welcome everyone. My name is Josh Gildy, and I'm part of the faculty here at the Kelley School, with specifically within the marketing department. And one of my primary responsibilities is leading one of our first year academies. So every first year MBA student comes into the program and picks one of these academies. And it's really about career exploration, mentorship, getting out into industry, building the skills for that summer internship after your first year. And so I spend a lot of time in the classroom and on the road with students, helping them make connections out in industry, and really happy to be here.
You and John, if you want to take it from there.
Sure, thanks, Mike. I'm John Hill. I am the faculty chair for the full-time MBA program here at Kelley, and I've been here at Kelley about 13 years now, and I've taught in the MBA program that entire time, and I've been on the administrative side for the last 4 years. Most of my role has to do around curriculum, working with our industry partners, understanding what are the skills that our students need, and then figuring out the best way to integrate them into the curriculum to make sure that our students prepare for the next step in their career. So a lot of what I'll be talking about today has to do with what to look for in MBA curriculum and how that decision affects your ability to get that next job that you want.
Absolutely. And thank you, John, as well for being here. And Kimberly, last but not least, nice to meet you today too.
Nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Kimberly Good, and I'm a career coach at the Kelley School of Business, working with the graduate students. I've been at Indiana University Bloomington for 8.5 years, working at Kelley for 4 of those years. I coach and teach first and second year MBA students, and I help them throughout all aspects of their MBA journey, starting with our well-known Me Inc. onboarding program, which is a 2-week program prior to the start of the academic term, where students explore the direction that they want to go, all the way through their 2 years to gaining their internship and their full-time job. So providing support for the journey in the discovery phase, networking, interviewing, and then ultimately performing in those full-time jobs that they land.
Very nice stuff. And nice to have such a nice profile of different folks that you would work with along the journey at business school, representing different departments, different faculty departments, as well as just, different coaches and mentors and folks that will help you along the way. I think that's something that's really underrated about MBA programs and grad degrees in general is the amount of support that you do receive as a student. Again, a lot of people just think I have to go back to school. There's some networking involved, and that's kind of it, right? But that's not it at all. And that's why we're doing a session today with the folks that we have to kind of really dive deeper into what is the other things about an MBA program? What else can this thing open up for you? who do you meet along the way, and how do those folks kind of help you on that journey towards your next career phase? So, with that, we can start with our first question today, which is, how does an MBA really accelerate someone's career? And Josh, I'll go back to you because we started with you first on the intros, so we'll go back to you to start with this response.
Sure. Yeah, I think like this is a complicated question because there are lots of different things that you can get out of an MBA program. One of the things that I think surprises a lot of students is they think of an MBA program for the hard skills that they will get, so the classroom learning. And that is definitely a big part of the curriculum. What surprises them though is that there's a lot of soft skill learning that is equally important, and maybe they weren't clear that that was something that they were going to get out of an MBA program, but it's things like developing judgment. You mentioned networking, dealing with adversity, communication skills, and those are just as important, perhaps even more important for success in career and in the business world than knowing how to run an accounting statement or developing a marketing plan. The reality is that it all is valuable as you put together the full offering, but people come out of an MBA program different and like in a good way. And I think some of those softer things around the edges are what really surprise people and really make the difference, in changing who they are and what they can accomplish in their career beyond just a name or a line on a resume.
John or Kimberly, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think if I were to put it in one sentence, a full-time MBA program is the most efficient way to gain cross-functional knowledge. Because if you're in some role right now, it's in some function. Maybe it's marketing, maybe it's finance, maybe it's operations. Who knows? Maybe it's not even business related. But that's what you do full time. And so to try to round your skill set out to get you in a position to take a corporate leadership role, like how can you do that when you're also just sort of focused on your own discipline? And so to be able to just step out of that and commit yourself, yeah, it's 2 years, but commit yourself to an opportunity to engage with other students that come from different disciplines, different industries, different functions, and to be able just to learn about the entire business landscape at once is way more efficient than to try to figure out how do I supplement what I'm doing by dabbling over here, trying to make some contacts in my company in another functional area, and trying to build that on your own. I think it would take so long to get what you get out of an MBA in just 21 months.
Yeah, to build off that, I'll just say that the benefit of coming to a full-time MBA program is to take a break from the hustle, to reflect on what you want out of your career. It's a time that a lot of students make a career pivot or level up in their leadership skills and take on leadership opportunities after graduation. So it's a way to be competitive and future-proof their career. We take time on the career development side. We take time to help students look at who they are, what unique skills they have, to help them build a brand and develop throughout their time at Kelley in terms of how they want to develop, how they want to grow in their career moving forward. So we provide a circle of support, as you said earlier, Mike, around students on the academic side, the program side, and the career coaching and career development side.
Yeah, and it is nice to kind of, again, you kind of go through this journey and you think you may be the only person from your town or city that is applying to a program, and you think it's a little scary to kind of, for some folks, travel across the globe, right? But you can see there is a little support net that's kind of built for you at these programs, which is really nice to see. And I do see questions coming in. Again, I will make sure we get to questions as they make sense throughout our schedule of our event here. And I'm looking through our questions we have prepared as I'm looking at the ones coming in. So these will all align and make sense as we move forward. So I'm not ignoring questions. I'm fitting them in properly here. So keep that in mind as you are putting questions into the chat and keep those coming in. So our next question, which is actually a second piece of what someone just wrote to us in the chat anyway, is what role does formal education play in a world driven by AI? So AI, obviously a big disruptor in today's world, whether that is on the career side of, different ways that folks can do jobs or handle jobs or certain careers and industries kind of being impacted by the availability of AI, but also within these programs itself, right? Like, is the curriculum being driven by that? Should you be learning it or staying away from it, right? So, again, just any tips that you all would have about how education kind of help you navigate this type of a disruption possibly in business. John, if you want to kick this one off, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Before I get into specifics about how AI gets integrated in the curriculum, and we are a leader in that area, let me just take a step back and talk about what a generalist MBA business education has always been about. Okay, and management is about leveraging the expertise of others. And so, I teach a lot of quantitative analysis courses because that's my discipline. And I'm not creating computer science geniuses. I am creating managers that can go talk to the data science experts. And I view AI from a curriculum perspective as another expert, right? So in many ways, when we're talking about how do you structure a curriculum in an MBA program to respond to AI, we've been doing it for years because AI is another example of a functional expert whose expertise I need to leverage as a manager. And what really matters for me is my critical thinking skills, my judgment, my ability to integrate across functional areas and make a good strategic business decision. AI is really just another input into the process that we've been teaching in MBA programs for years. So we don't ignore it. Um, at our institution, from the highest levels at Indiana University, even above and beyond the business school, there is a directive to where we have to report what are we doing with AI in the classroom, how are we integrating it, how are we using it in our program, right? And Kimberly can probably talk about what AI is doing in career search. I'll let her do that because she's the expert there, right? But it's very much about that's a skill the students have to have, and it makes no sense to run away from it, hide from it, pretend it doesn't exist, any more than it would have made sense to ignore computers 40 years ago.
Yeah, if I could just add here, AI is a skill, and we want to teach that skill. But as we've been talking about, you're learning a lot more. John mentioned judgment and experience, management skills, how to manage teams and people. And if you think of AI as an agent or a contributor to the team, that still has to be managed. So, we will often tell students, you need to think of yourself as leaving this MBA program when you graduate as a director, meaning you are directing others, including the use of AI to accelerate things. But AI does not replace good interpersonal skills. AI does not replace good strategy, and you still have to develop that largely through experience. And so, like at Kelley, we're really focused on experiential learning because you learn when you do, and you have to be accountable for the decisions that you make and the outcomes that you produce, and then you shift and you improve from there. And those types of things are extremely valuable with AI alongside you because you can judge the output and incorporate it into the team, make sure that it's a fit culturally. So I think it's about learning AI and being proficient at it, but also accentuating the skills that AI cannot do and being even better at those, which we teach in the program.
Yeah, this is a great time to get an MBA because of the opportunity to just dive in and gain AI skills. Employers absolutely want leaders who are AI savvy and know how to use AI ethically, how to use it as a support tool and a thought partner, how to leverage it to move things forward. So the skills that you develop in the program in terms of critical thinking and leadership and working in teams and cross-functionally and leveraging AI within that are absolutely timely and essential. And in fact, in interviews, employers want an answer to how have you been using AI? And we have been incorporating AI into the job search for 2 years now. Kelley's on the cutting edge of incorporating AI. We offer free AI courses to everyone across campus. And if you aren't using AI in the job search and you don't know how to use it strategically, you're going to get left behind. And so I'm really proud to say that that is something that Kelley excels in and that we train students on from the very beginning.
Mike, sometimes students will ask like, can I expect to have direct reports when I graduate with my MBA? And it used to be more of a nuanced answer, and now I say absolutely, you're going to have one direct report for sure. And if you subscribe to multiple AI systems, you can have several.
Yeah.
And I think, like we're all, learning how to get comfortable talking into the computer and giving instruction and, getting more output. But what this is doing is just making a good, smart, thoughtful business leader much, much more effective, when used right. And it's pretty exciting to see how to use it in that human way where we don't remove the human leader and manager, but make them more effective.
Yeah, I mean, my takeaway from your answers, which are all fantastic, by the way, is that instead of looking at AI as being that, well, AI is a disruptor in industry, right? But instead of saying, oh my gosh, I'm now stuck against this object that is AI, I don't know what to do, going back and studying this stuff and going to an MBA program and going to really embrace the AI and come out as a manager utilizing that tool instead of somebody who's working in an office. It's kind of like, oh no, this thing may take away parts of my job. The AI may make it even more of a reason to go back to school in this day and age to really understand how you can embrace that new tool that's available to you. So that's an interesting way to kind of flip the thinking a bit, I think, for folks. So that's fantastic, and I love the way that you all answered that. Actually, John, a quick follow-up for you because of how you began your answer with how you'll embrace the AI tools as a member of your team almost, right? So, and having more of that generalist approach within an MBA versus like a specialized program, which the question in our chat was specialized degrees like data science might be valued more in today's day and age because of, the debate around the utility of the MBA. It sounds like based on your answer, though, it's a different approach. Like you're looking at it more, you want to have that generalist idea, you want to embrace the AI tool, and there's a way forward with the MBA still. Is that kind of how you would describe that?
Well, it depends on what you want to do career-wise, right? If you
Yeah.
are really want to double down on a particular technical field, then an MS makes a lot of sense there, right? But if you're talking about getting into business leadership, have an influence that extends across the boundaries of the organization, then having a generalist knowledge and understanding the different aspects of business is critical. You can't lead an organization within a silo. So that's where the MBA comes in. There are certainly places in industry for technical experts. And, going back to my industry career before I got into academia, there was a classic sort of two-path approach in terms of promotion. You either were promoted through general management, where the generalist degree is going to really be important, or you said, I want to be a technical expert, and you lived with a lower ceiling in exchange for being comfortable just doing what you really like to do. And so I don't know that there's a right answer, right? But to Kimberly's point, part of this whole MBA journey is discovering yourself and understanding what your values are and what you're trying to do with your career. And you have to answer that for yourself before you decide whether an MBA versus an MS is the right decision.
Mike, I think it's important to add here that a well-developed MBA program is also going to have focus. So the majority of our students, they come into the program, and while it is, like John mentioned, a generalist degree, and it's a really efficient way to learn all of these disciplines and how they interact, all of our students, for example, are focused into one of these academies, like the one that I lead for business marketing, B2B. And most of them are leaving Kelley when they graduate and moving into a role within a discipline. So, on the one hand, you're trying to see if I want to get to the next point in my career, I need to understand how my discipline interacts with all the others. But the reality is, it's not like we produce a bunch of general managers that just go into the general management department. Like they go into specific functions, marketing, finance, operations. But because they have that broad view, they're now able to take a step up and not just be an individual contributor, but coordinate with other functions and ultimately in their career then lead divisions of companies and firms, start their own company, be more general managers. But you're still picking a major, you're still doing a deep dive in marketing or finance or operations. and getting a lot of experience, exposure, and networking in that discipline in a particular industry. So it's a mix of broad learning and applying that to a specific path out of your MBA.
Great stuff. Yeah, thank you for taking that one off script a bit, but I think it did fit based on those answers on that last question. So we'll go to the next topic here, which is when people think about an MBA, a lot of the focus, especially here now, is about promotions or the pay that they'll receive at the end of the program. But however, what are some other doors that the MBA can open that maybe is outside of just singularly focusing on promotions, pay, bonuses, all that stuff, right? What else can you receive from doing these types of programs? Josh, do you want to kick that one off?
Sure. I mean, I've like yet to meet a student who says to me like, I don't care about money at all. I'll do this work for free. I'm just in it for the love of business. I think students are motivated by accelerating their careers, and like as John said earlier, there's just no better way than in a full-time MBA program to accelerate that move and that jump. And certainly it does come through promotion and pay, but some of the things that I think are also really valuable, especially in hindsight after you go through the experiences, like number one, it creates optionality for you. Whereas before you might have been just focused in one area, one industry, you realize I can network my way pretty much anywhere I want to go. And because I have that broad business understanding now, I can apply my skills and experience to much greater areas. The chances that any professional is going to land in a company or an industry in a role and stay there their entire career are pretty low, especially when they're investing in their education, like in an MBA program. So optionality is a huge one. I would also add that you're also gaining access to people that enrich, your experience as a manager. You're gaining access to judgment, which allows you to participate in a lot deeper and perhaps higher level discussions. When I got an MBA 20 years ago, that was one of my main motivations is I wanted to be involved earlier in decision making, not just tactical execution, but more of the strategy work to saying, where are we going to go? What are we going to do? Why are we going to do it? And, whether you're getting a bump in pay or promotion, you are getting that ability to be involved in those discussions earlier.
Yeah, I'll hop in and talk a little bit about the Kelley MBA and the benefits of a Kelley MBA. We have the largest alumni network. So one of the unanticipated benefits of getting an MBA at Kelley is obviously because we're a top program, the pay statistics, anybody can see them on our website, are strong, but also having the backing of that network that is very engaged. Last year in 2025, 92.6% of our students had a full-time job within 90 days of graduation, which was the top among our peer institutions. So not just that, but you have the reputation of those different major programs that Josh mentioned, like marketing. We are a leading marketing program, if not the leading marketing program in the nation, but a lot of our majors carry weight like that. And coming out of those majors, not only do many students make a career pivot or level up into leadership roles, but we have companies that are actively recruiting Kelley students because of the reputation of our program, like Amazon, Microsoft, McKinsey, Bain, PwC, Ecolab, Emerson, and I could keep going. Procter and Gamble, a lot of the top CPG companies, because we're known for, as I mentioned, our marketing program. So there are a lot of benefits of an MBA program that I think students might not realize. So I want to highlight those. Of course, pay is part of it. And there are a lot of other benefits that can be realized. And one last thing is the leadership potential that you gain through this program, because it's very teamwork oriented. Everything is done in teams and cases throughout the core. So there's a real community feel to the program here where to John's point earlier, you have to know how to work with cross-functionals. So that skill is developed deeply in the Kelley program.
John, anything for you? Or yeah.
Yeah, I think to follow on what Kimberly said there, it's about the teams and the community. That's, I think, what maybe people don't expect, and then it shows up, right? So just rubbing elbows with your teammates and who come from different industries, different functional areas, we are very intentional around putting together teams that force you to work with folks that have different backgrounds, because you're gonna have to do that in industry, right? So um, you get a certain amount of exposure. It's almost like osmosis. Just being in the classroom, being with your academies, rubbing elbows with folks that come from different countries, different industries, different functions. And we really try hard at Kelley to make that a collaborative thing, right? We say no sharp elbows. Right? So I love it when a student helps another student make a connection from their industry, maybe with Kimberly's help, but maybe just on their own because they're working together and collaborating and trying to find speakers that a fellow student might enjoy hearing from and these sort of things. So I don't know how you even quantify just, you call it just it rubs off on you just from being in that environment. And there's no rankings metric for that, but it's a really important part of the experience.
I mean, it is one of those common phrases about MBA programs, and our faculty panelists can hold their ears for a second, but a lot of folks do say you almost get as much out of your fellow classmates as you do from the faculty in these programs for the reasons that you just mentioned. It's kind of like you're in that room, you got a lot of hungry people looking to do something with their lives, looking to kind of pursue their dreams, and they're all willing to help one another, which is interesting because, and there are other programs that don't always do it that way, but yeah, you're competing for similar jobs, but everybody wants to help each other because you're all in this together in a way. So that is what's really great. And it's nice to hear that Kelley is more of that collaborative type of environment for the students, which is always better, in my opinion, to see. So moving into the next topic here, what would you say actually helps people move from just managing their work to actually being able to lead strategically coming out of an MBA program? John, we'll stick with you for this question.
So Kimberly briefly mentioned the last question, cases and the core as part of our structure. So what we're trying to do is create leaders that understand multiple functions, even though to Josh's point, you're probably going to walk into industry within a function and get a functional leadership role first. But we're trying to connect these different functions. So the way we do it here is we have an integrated core, which means you have a single class, one grade that incorporates marketing, finance, operations together. And what that would allow a student to do in this sort of program is to maybe analyze a case from those different perspectives. Same business problem. How do I look at it from an operations perspective? How do I look at it from a marketing perspective? How do I look at it from a finance perspective? And start to train students to think holistically about these problems. Because what we're really trying to do is help you build influence in your next job in your career. Because that's what one of the things that students want is how do I drive change? To Josh's point, which he just made, how do I get earlier in my career to that point where I can make a recommendation, influence a business decision, really feel like I'm making an impact at my company? And so a big part of that is being able to understand how your counterparts and other functionaries are thinking, where they're coming from, what's important to them, so you can really have an influence that is impactful in your company. And so integrated thinking is a big part of how we try to approach that with our teams and with our core structure to help students be in a position where they go to get their first job. And yes, they are a marketing manager now, but they understand the finance implication of their decision. They understand the operational impact of their decision. And now they can work together with the whole group.
Yeah, one of the things that every student at Kelley does is learn through doing as well in the real world. And for most MBA students, they're going to do an internship between their first and second year, but it starts way before that. So all Kelley students have a client project at the end of their first year. And that means it's a real client with real expectations. Once they've done the core experience that John mentioned, they now have the chance to sit down with a real client who wants to get something done in the market and to try their hand at that. And there's just no better way to learn than to be able to do and to have to be accountable for your decisions to a real live breathing human being who has expectations about you and your work. And that it just like it elevates the learning. And some people might look at that and say, well, that sounds really stressful. But when you pair that up with the culture that we have at Kelley, which is supportive and really helps people to collaborate in their teams. Yeah, it's scary, but that's why you do an MBA program because you want to push yourself and to try new things and to build new skills. And that's just not going to happen by reading a book. It's being in front of these faculty. It's answering in front of your peers. It's working with real clients. And what happens is you start to see a change in yourself. And I think the place where we see this is after the first year, these students come back for their second year, and it is incredible the amount of transformation that they've gone through. And then that continues through their second year. And you can see John's nodding his head because like we talk about this all the time. Like the student almost doesn't see it because it's happening through these intense experiences, but it is really dramatic. The confidence that you see, the ability to think on their feet and deliver, it's incredible. And that's what going through an intense experience like this will generate for you.
I guess staying kind of on that topic, right? So what are some of those other practical elements of the program that can really push these students? And so you've touched on a few of them already, but and maybe even diving deeper into what these academies are specific at Kelley, because we do have a question in the chat. It has been mentioned a couple of times now as well. And specifically, if you wanted to tackle one, the chat did ask about the Capital Markets Academy. And I guess there's applications to those academies. So if there's any description, and Josh, if you want to kind of kick that one off on
Sure.
maybe the academy topic, and then we can all kind of talk about the other practical elements of the Kelley program.
Sure. So the academies at Kelley, the first year academies, sort of sit in between the classroom learning that you're doing. So John mentioned the integrated core, and then of course other electives that you would take. They sit in between that and then your career search, which is what Kimberly's really coaching the students on. And what it does is it exposes students to the area of their choice. So one of our 6 first-year academies that I lead is the Business Marketing Academy. So if you're interested in a career in B2B marketing in healthcare, tech, industrial, financial services, where businesses are marketing and selling to other business entities, we're going to travel and get out on the road and go visit companies. We've got an executive board that comes in of VPs, presidents, and CEOs that are mentoring individual students. We have alumni coming in doing day in the life activities where they're saying like this, I'm 3 years out of Kelley. This is what I do in my role, and these are the skills that are most valuable in that role. And then, you're pairing that with all of the learning that you're doing in class so that you can make good decisions about where you want to go and not just leave students on their own to say, yeah, I guess I'll just apply to some jobs and try to sort that out. This is an integrated experience. So it's learning the hard skills, it's developing soft skills, but it's also learning things like how to network effectively. How do I take advantage of this largest living network in the world that Kelley has? And so all of that is to say these academies are designed to sort of fill the gap there and really get you out into industry, making connections, networking, and paving your own path to where you want to go.
Mike, if I could follow up on that, and looking at Alex's question here, yes, what does a competitive academy application look like? Um, I want to sort of change the paradigm of that question on you, Alex. And that is the purpose of the academy is to help the student get where they want to go, right? And so at Kelley, it's not about how do I get a spot in the Capital Markets Academy instead of someone else. It's working with the academy directors and the faculty in the program and folks like Kimberly in the career services side of things to figure out which academy is best for you. And if it's the best fit that's going to help you get where you need to go, then that's your academy. And so it's not about who who makes the cut, so to speak. We're here to support your career goals, and the academy, as Josh mentioned, is an absolutely integral part of that process.
That's great. Yeah, thank you for expanding upon that for that question as well, Alex. Thanks for putting that through to us there. Any additional items on practical elements of the program that can help push students through collaboration? Kimberly, I don't know if you have anything for that.
Just from a skills-based perspective, that the teamwork is just essential to success post MBA in those MBA level roles. And the academy brings together, academics, the career side, and helps students network. So it's where everything comes together. It's kind of like a secret sauce that is unique to Kelley. And what I see in terms of development of students is uh, that academy takes the classroom learning and the career learning and blends it to where the light bulb is going on all the time and prepares in real time students working on a real project for the internship and success in the internship, and then ultimately success in the full-time role because of that hands-on experience they walk out of from the program. So post MBA, leaders are working on teams where they may have direct authority or they might have indirect authority. So this is just essential skill building and skills that employers are looking for when they're hiring candidates.
Mike, I would add that one of the things that students build, and Kimberly's responsible for a lot of this, is managing your own career. And if you go back and look at an MBA program 20 years ago, it might have looked more like, I pick a good MBA program, they have relationships with certain companies, those companies will come onto campus and interview me, and then I'll just, I'll pick the best one. And companies still do that, of course. Like they still come to Kelley and they still interview, but now with online interviewing, any candidate anywhere in the world can essentially interview with any company, and it's not really about physical proximity anymore. So what that means is that candidates have to take much more charge of their own career trajectory and really deciding, what am I about? What are the things that are of interest to me? How do I network into those spaces, and where do I find those opportunities? And that sounds like a lot of work, and it is, but it's also extremely empowering because now you're not saying, I'm going to have to just pick from this limited set of options. The sky's the limit. And that is really exciting because you can come in and curate this path. And John said, it's not about getting into the academy, it's about picking the right academy. And that's what this whole program is about, like designing your future. And it's a lot to take on, I think, for our students, but that's why Me Inc. is there at the beginning of the program to help them decide who they are. That's why the core curriculum is very inclusive. That's why the academies are a year-long activity. But that's all designed to give students the time and space to sort these things out and ultimately lead their own charge.
All right, so I'm gonna give Kelley the time to shine here because largest alumni network is something that we cannot just ignore and gloss over. So, how does that network actually factor into the clarity and confidence that your graduates have over time and not just the job search, right? So obviously, as we've mentioned a couple of times, it will help you get your foot in the door. But what are some other things that that large network is really going to help you with? I don't know if Kimberly, if you want to kick one off here, because this may be, yeah, okay, there we go.
Yeah. So for example, this spring I have 6 career events that I'm presenting to first years and second years. And I just reach out to alumni for alumni panels, and they're so excited to contribute and give back. Our second years are super engaged, giving back to the first years. And then when they become alum, they remember this circle of support, that it just goes on. And when you are a Kelley, you have career coaching for life. So there's just this amazing community and loyalty. So the benefit of that network can't be under um, appreciated. Yeah, it's really, really amazing how committed the alumni are to, and how engaged. I mean, they travel to be in part of the academy experience. They're on the boards of the different academies. They serve on panels. They send us jobs. Hey, I'm hiring. I want to get more Kelleys in here. So we can share those opportunities with students. So that's one of the things I also have an MBA. And one of the things I love that about the Kelley community that's unique is what a community it is. So the network is pretty priceless, honestly.
Josh,
I
John. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think we can say enough about this. Look, it is valuable to have this massive network of committed people, but we're also teaching students how to network. And a lot of people hear that word and they just think, oh, okay, this is just glad handing and, it's all transactional and I just gotta, pretend that I like this person so that they'll offer me a job. That's not what we're talking about. If Kelley is nothing else, we are authentic. And so this is about teaching people how to communicate, how to build a relationship with someone, like a real, thoughtful relationship, how to surround yourself with, a personal board of advisors and bringing people into your network and bringing them into your story. And so, yes, our alumni network are more attuned to helping our students, but we're also teaching them skills that build your network no matter where you are. And like this works because it's not uncommon for me to talk to an alum who's been out of the program for 15, 20 years and they'll say things like, I haven't applied for a job in the last 15 years. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like you've switched companies, you've switched positions. And they're like, yeah, because I don't have to, apply to get a job and just be a resume. I've got a network of people who know who I am, who know what I'm about, and want me to be a part of their team. And that is as important of a skill as anything you will learn in any class. And so being able to build your confidence to provide value to other people, to learn to tell your story, to take interest in other people and what they're doing, it can be learned. It's not just personality. Like you can learn how to do those things and be a contributor to a network. And that's exciting because then you can go anywhere. You can do anything with that skill set.
Yeah, and we teach that skill in our leadership and professional development course, which is part of the core. And we talk a lot about what it looks like to be a master networker. And networking, as Josh said, supports transitions, but also perspective shifts. Students are learning about areas that they want to go into. So they take an idea and it becomes 3D when they work with people who are in the field. So yeah, the focus is on connection and genuine connection. And networking is really about people helping people. And a robust network will only function if that's the spirit of it. So again, it comes all back to relationship building.
Kimberly, I like the way you said that. I'm going to steal that. That's really good. I love the way you framed that up.
Thank you.
Awesome. So I'm going to try to fit this in here because I think it might make sense. And hopefully you follow me on me connecting these questions, right? But we have a career coach who's on the call and works with undergrads and folks interested in business, but also supporting MBA and MSBA students. What are the realistic job outcomes in this market for younger professionals versus the more seasoned professionals, right? And what I'm hoping you may talk about is maybe some of the, great networking skills that everybody has here and just the ability to kind of get people out. But then also there's somebody else who's asking about which candidate profiles extract the most value from an MBA and whether those candidates with 3 to 4 years of experience could benefit more or less from these programs. So kind of two different ways of looking at maybe younger candidates, less experienced candidates, and their experience in the program, but also getting out of the program. Whoop.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I'll say that I'm in this market, companies are hiring and they're hiring undergraduate students and they're hiring graduate students. There's a lot of hustle to the job search, and a lot of strategy that needs to be understood. But there are a lot of companies hiring, and I can't speak as much to the undergraduate students and the statistics. We have strong outcomes on both sides of that equation. In some cases where there are industries that are correcting or going through layoffs in order to maximize their the capital, they might turn to hiring undergrads to fill holes. But also with what companies are going through with this AI revolution, companies really understand the need for savvy MBA candidates. So I'm not sure exactly if that answers the question, but that's my effort at that.
I think it sounds good to me. Yeah.
John, do you want in on this one?
You can go ahead.
Okay. I I mean, I think if I'm like hearing the question right, there is this question of like, does it still make sense, and what's the best way to think about this in a world of AI and an economy here in the US that is moving to some extremes that might correct. And I think one thing I've learned in my career is you cannot time these things. So it's really kind of a fool's errand to say I'm going to try to time a market turn, or I'm going to try to guess where a technology is going. There is some evidence that more junior positions are being more impacted by this technology and by the economy in general. Like it's better to have a job than to be finding a job generally. But at the same time, it's never a bad idea to invest in yourself. It's never a bad idea to become more educated. It's never a bad idea to increase your skill set. Never a bad idea to increase your network. And so, I look at this and say, you get the best bang for an MBA when you have, I don't know what our official guidance here is, but like 3 to 7 years experience plus. Like you've got some experience under your belt, that you've been in business, you've had some different roles. You can apply that to the learning. But we cannot look at an MBA, we meaning all society, and just say, oh, it's just about the degree or the name. It's about the skills that you get, and being able to promote yourself, gaining clarity about what you really want out of your career. And when those things are happening, plus you're getting formal education and certification that you are skilled and capable, good things are going to happen. So I think that the general trend of education, investment in oneself is still the right path forward. And then you want to do it in an institution like Kelley, where we're leaning heavily into AI and helping you build that skill set along with some of the more tried and true skill sets of a manager.
Yeah, I guess in terms of experience, I don't want students to feel like I've only got 3 to 4, I'm not ready yet. You might be ready. Um, there's a threshold of experience that's necessary for two reasons. One is we create an academic environment in which we are allowing students to support each other's education, right? So you got to bring something to the table to benefit the class, right? And so there's a criteria there. And there's sort of a practical criteria in terms of the employers. What are they looking for? Well, if we want to have employers that come here and offer our graduates competitive MBA salaries, the employers have an expectation about how much work experience you have. Um, is it worth going and working for a few years and then coming back for an MBA versus going straight into an MS? Well, that kind of all goes back to your original question, Mike, which is, I don't know, how do you compare a data science degree to an MBA? And a lot of that has to do with what are your career ambitions?
Yeah, and you can always do both, right? I mean, there is that option where you do the MS right after undergrad, see how that goes for you, and the MBA is always there for you. It's not going to do two MBAs. You're doing a master's degree, and then you're going to come back for an MBA, so that's an option. I think the other thing that you all have kind of touched on throughout the session is, the experience within the classroom, having people from different perspectives, whether that's their academic background, their professional background, but even some of this stuff too, like the age background and different generations of folks in the classroom. And, you'll say, oh, it's funny, Mike, you're saying, maybe a 5-year gap in experience is a generation difference. Come on. I mean, a lot has happened in the last 5 years. So these people have experienced different things. And so you coming in with 3 to 4 years of experience in what those 3 to 4 years just were, You probably have a very different mindset of what business looks like versus the person who has 8 to 10 years of experience in that classroom. So even though you are maybe a younger junior person joining this program, you could be contributing a lot to the discussion, to the topics in the class, and still have kind of a perspective on what you have experienced. So don't sell yourself short just because you've worked for a short amount of time. You may have gone through a lot and had a pretty good journey over that time. And as long as your career goals align, that's really what we're looking for. So that makes sense.
One of the
Um,
nice things
yeah.
about Kelley too is as we're working with prospective students, uh, I don't know another program that has career coaches like Kimberly who will take the time to meet with a prospective student. Like even if we don't know whether or not you're going to choose Kelley, we have opportunities to connect with our program and ask those questions. And we ask those questions. When we get an applicant that maybe has 2 years of experience or 3 years of experience, we'll go to the career services folks and say, hey, before we admit this student, before we have them leave their job, spend 2 years here, pay all this tuition, we want to make sure this student is in a position where they can be successful. And I have talked to students and said, hey, you're great, but if you had one more year, our career services could do so much more with you, right? So it's about collaboration and especially for international students, like talking about uprooting your life and moving halfway around the globe, like we don't want to do that unless we really feel strongly that we can support you and you're in a position where you can launch at this point.
Mike, if I could add one more thing, Alyssa updated her question, like refined her question or clarified her question in the chat. And she was asking about the benefit of an MS or 3-2 program versus like something like a full-time MBA program or a full MBA program. And I will say that what I see as a coach and what I hear from employers is that when they're hiring for MBA level candidates, they really want that experience. So they do see 3-2 MBA and MS candidates as attractive, but in a different way. The experience gives coming into the program gives students a savvy that employers are willing to pay for. So also you'll see differences in the salary outcomes because if you don't have real world experience and you've gone all the way through school, all the way through your undergrad and all the way through an MS program, you have a lot of knowledge and not that perhaps know-how as much. So I still believe that an MBA, if you want to level up as a leader, that's what employers are really seeking and paying for when they hire an MBA and when they recruit an MBA.
Yeah. No, I think that makes perfect sense. And thank you for catching that. I was just actually catching the same thing that she did kind of re-clarify that question. So that's awesome. And there you go. Thank you. And yeah, it's a lot of work managing expectations. That's exactly, there's a reason that those applications to business school have all those questions. Fill them out and write those essays and make sure everybody knows exactly what you're looking to do and take those meetings. If someone like Kimberly is offering to meet with you prior to joining the program, that's fantastic to be able to have that kind of a connection. So, okay, so a few minutes remaining in what we had scheduled. Obviously, if we run over by a few minutes or so, that's, we'll see if our panelists have that time to do that. We had a couple of additional questions that came in versus also what we had planned. So, I'm going to jump around a little bit, but for all of you here, when people are comparing programs towards one another, and we're doing a little bit of this, right? We are currently comparing maybe MS programs versus MBAs or all that kind of stuff, right? But a lot of, again, the focus is on the ranking of the program or the salaries that I can get at the end of the program. But when you're advising folks on which program to choose or what to really consider, what should they be looking at? So if you take rankings aside, right, what are the things you really need to consider when choosing that program that you're going to go spend your time with for the next 2 years? And that's another thing we didn't mention in the last question that, and we kind of said, Josh mentioned it a bit, where you can't really game the marketplace. You also got to remember if you're joining a full-time 2 year program, you're giving yourself a 2 year kind of gap where you can go and learn a bunch and gain a lot of experience and get that network and avoid all the, stuff going on in the current recruitment process. So another key thing to think about, it's a great time to join and kind of camp out in an MBA program, let the dust settle, and then you're ready to go with a new AI job. So anyways, back to the question. So what should folks really focus on beyond just rankings, salary data, placement data, when you are advising folks on how to choose a program?
I can start with that, Mike.
Yeah.
A couple of things. A lot of times students will ask me, about rankings. And what I tell them is rankings matter the most if whatever the rankings prioritize is the same thing you prioritize, right? And then they look at me and say,
Yeah.
well, what are the rankings prioritize? And I say, well, if you have to ask that question, proceed with caution, right? So I think it is important to look at, is a program ranked, because it signals something to the market when you go into the market. But if we're talking about deciding between number 17 and number 18 program, this is where your question comes in, right? And so remember, you are not every student, you are you. And so the real question is, how does this program work for people like me? So what are some examples from that program of folks that came from my background and went to X where I want to go? And how has it worked for them? Because there's a lot of stuff that affects things like salaries that have nothing to do with you, right? If you have a program that is primarily capital markets focused, they may have a high starting salary, but that's not going to help you if you want to go into marketing, because you want a program that's to support you in marketing. So you've really got to do the legwork, invest the time, understand the culture, and figure out not, what is the program in aggregate, but what does this program do for someone like me with my background that's going in the direction I intend to go?
Yeah, I would agree with everything John said. I think a student is better off taking 3 or 4 programs and digging deep on them as opposed to looking at 25 programs and looking superficially at them. For example, John mentioned culture, and culture is a complicated word, but look at like the culture of the student body. So Kelley, for example, Big Ten school, Indiana University in a college town. So when students come for an MBA at Kelley, they're largely here for an MBA. They move here and their lives are here. What does that mean? That means that a lot of the cohesiveness among the cohort is together because they're all here doing the same thing. They're all having a similar new experience. Contrast that with, and I won't name a school, but like a school in a large city, right? That's probably going to draw more of a student body that already lives there and, has family in the area and so comes to school and then leaves. I don't, I want to be careful not to say one is better than the other, but that's gonna give you a very different experience. I would also look at resources for the school. We tend to have about 100 to 120 students in our MBA class. That's maybe kind of mid-sized. We're one of the largest business schools in the country and have the faculty and resources to support that. Thousands of undergraduate students and multiple graduate programs. That means there's a lot of resources for those 100 students in the full-time MBA program. And again, you might want to be in a program that has 1,000 MBA students or one that has 40. That's really up to you, but you want to look at some of those more nuanced things because it will contribute directly to the experience that you have.
Yeah, I will say that we really want students to find the right fit for them, whether it's Kelley or somewhere else. Um, Obviously, we believe in Kelley because we're here, but I think that students want to look at what knowledge and skills do they want to gain? What kind of teamwork and community are they looking for? Kelley is highly experiential learning oriented, not just within the core, but global programs all over the world. And that's pretty incredible, those kinds of opportunities. Building, where are you going to build the judgment and the learning and the leadership skills that you want? And also, there are aspects of programs that will vary that get highlighted. And for Kelley, the coaching and the onboarding experience and that is a distinguishing factor of the program here, as well as the integrated core and the academies. So I think looking at those different aspects of programs and how, to John's point, how will that serve somebody like you that wants to go in the direction that you want to go? So those are some of the things that I would look at, and also the strength of the majors and the kinds of outcomes that students have. Where are students landing after graduation? What companies, and how does that fit with what you want? So I tend to encourage students to take a holistic approach to answering those questions, and reflection is a really big part of making this decision. Reflection and research.
Yeah, and that research, to John's point, I mean, yeah, the rankings are great, right? They're out there. People get paid a lot of money to put those things together, but it's not, some random person's list of why these schools are the best. You have to decide what's good for you. And that's why there are so many programs and so many options. And I think you all touched on what some of those options can look like and what could be different for each program. And you got to find your fit. And I think the fit goes both ways, right? Everyone's worried about getting into these schools, which it is very difficult at times to get into these schools. But you need to make sure that the fit fits for you as well. It's not just are you getting in, but should you go there? Should you choose that school? Is that going to open up the doors that you expect it to open? And to close us out, actually, we can talk about that, right? So, in a sentence or two, kind of what is that thing that an MBA can still do for you? What is that door that it can still open for you? And if you wanted to pass one last thing along to our audience today, which thank you all for joining us as we went through today's session. If there's a couple questions left over, we apologize. We wanted to make sure we kind of fit within the context of the session, but some great questions about study abroad opportunities, about entrepreneurship, about be changes in the strategies and stuff of recruitment, and we can get to those offline possibly, and we'll connect you all with the team at Kelley to get those questions answered in a different time. But in a sentence or two, when you think of today's landscape, what is that thing that an MBA can still do for somebody, and why is it a good time to join a program now? Who wants to go first? Which means
I'm,
whoever goes
I'm gonna
last is to
go.
close the session. So yeah, who wants to be the closer, as they say?
I'll go back to my first statement, Mike, and
Yeah.
that is just efficiency. There's nothing more efficient in terms of up-leveling your career, making a pivot, and getting yourself positioned for leadership in industry than an MBA. It's the quickest way to expose yourself to industry, functional roles, to build a professional network of peers that are going to be with you for the next 30 years. You can hedge things and "Oh, I can do it this way and keep my job, but this is a big decision. And sometimes it's just best to jump in with both feet and go after it. And that can be the most efficient, time efficient, money efficient approach that's going to get you where you need to go. It's a big investment, but you've got to think about ROI, not just what you're paying. And so, what is the return going to be for making a decision like this? And there aren't very many situations where in a couple of years you can just completely change the profile of your career and the trajectory of your career.
John, that was excellent, but way more than one sentence.
I'm a professor. That's what I do.
Yeah, I would add that an MBA is an incredible opportunity to really explore where you want to go and really ask some tough questions of what do I value, what type of work is meaningful to me, and then to go get it. And it's hard to do that when you're in a job and you're focused on the deliverables of that job. And so a full-time MBA is a wonderful environment to do that. And yeah, I mean, to John's point, it is also efficient to do that, but you go to a much deeper level than you could really do, at night after work. Like it's really quite in depth.
Yep, I'm not going to add much to that because I think John and Josh said it really well. I will just say it's an investment in you and the future that you want to build. So if you're on the fence, I just encourage you to reach out, ask questions, explore, jump in, apply. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Oh, one more thing. It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
We shouldn't forget that.
And most of all, have fun. Yeah, that's no, I love that. And I do appreciate those answers. And I think what's funny is like the topic of is an MBA still worth it? I've been in the world of MBA admissions, recruiting, working at ClearMit for it's got to be now 15 years. I feel like this is like a cyclical every 2 years. There's this question again, like, is it still a valuable degree? And here we are, we're still talking about it, right? And it still is. So I think the answer to that question is and always will be yes. It's always good to go get these degrees. It will only open doors from many different perspectives, as you all heard today from all the different topics we covered. So thank you to our panel for providing these answers to these questions, hanging out for a little over an hour. I apologize on the timing, but it was going really well, and I wanted to hear more from all of you. And we could probably go for another 3 hours if we really wanted to. But hopefully, our audience enjoyed the conversation as well to learn a bunch about MBA programs, how it is in this day and age, how it can still open up doors, and why it is still worth it, always worth it, to better yourself with education. And if you are interested in MBA programs, Indiana Kelley's program is obviously a great one to consider. So applications are open now. You can apply. You can put your best foot forward. Maybe you can meet with some of the members of our panel here as you're making your decisions. And hopefully we'll be adding to that alumni network in another, let me see if I do the math right, but it would be 4 months from now is graduation plus 22 months in the program. It's like 26 months or so if people join soon-ish. I don't even know. So hopefully we'll add to the Kelley network off of today's session. So thanks again for joining us, for our audience, and for our panel. And we hope to see you at future events soon.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye,
all.
everyone.